Welcome back to the Engler Journey podcast, where we're all about celebrating success, embracing failure, and inspiring the entrepreneur inside of you. I'm your host, Rebel Saklocha, and today I'm sitting down with a boots-on-the-ground entrepreneur who is also an alum of the Engler program. Kara Sousek is co-owner of 100 Hills Hops and Vines, president of the Nebraska Wine and Grape Growers Association, and also works at the Great Plains Tree Nursery. Kara, thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So to kick things off, give us some background on your upbringing and when you started to take an interest in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, well, gosh, how far to go back? I feel like my whole life I've been surrounded by entrepreneurs, and I feel like I kind of won the lottery of, having a great family growing up. My dad and many of his siblings and my mom's siblings are all farmers. Kind of the basics: corn, soybeans, cows. We did pigs for a while. I believe we're like a fifth generation farming family, probably more,
Wow.
but almost as far back as we can, record, tell. We've been farming. Czech. Both sides are very Czech, Bohemian to be exact. And my mom stayed home with us as kids, but then she went she worked for the post office for a while, for many years, not a while, many years, then worked for the VA and now immigration. And both parents are, super hardworking and kind of have the entrepreneurial spirit in them and have a lot of grit and determination. My mom did farmers markets while I was young and growing up, to kind of have, some extra grocery funds in the summer. She would make pies and sell stuff from the garden. And I kind of saw a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit growing up, and on the farming side as well. I have two siblings, my brother Nick and my sister Jess, and I'm the youngest of the three, and they're both married. I've got niece and a nephew, and then another one on the way, which is exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my siblings are all really hardworking as well, and their spouses. My brother-in-law farms with my dad now, and my brother also farms and works for Frontier Co-op. And my sister is a speech pathologist, and my sister also has started doing farmers markets and kind of has her own baking side hustle on the side.
Awesome.
So a lot of entrepreneurs in the family. So
Absolutely.
I kind of feel like it kind of runs in the blood. Yeah.
So you were exposed to these entrepreneurial spirits your entire life and throughout your upbringing. But when did you start to realize that you had a green thumb or kind of took an interest into plants? I mean, obviously as a farmer's daughter, that kind of comes naturally, but you're probably more inclined than 90% of the population.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. It's been there my whole life. As growing up, I would garden with my mom. She taught me how to garden, and we live right up the hill from my dad's parents. And they were both avid gardeners, both green thumbs as well. So I learned from them, and my mom's parents too. Always have a nice garden. I grew up playing in the dirt, helping plant seeds, weeding. Started helping with the landscape. I did 4-H growing up as well, and I dabbled in kind of everything, showed livestock, really enjoyed showing goats, and did a little bit of baking, a little bit of photography, but really what I was drawn to the most was the horticulture and floriculture, bringing in cut flowers and different things from the garden. And one project that I really enjoyed that I think kind of showed that I was a plant nerd, from a young age, is there was this binder you could create where you would research 10 different annuals and 10 different perennials, and basically say, find the scientific name and then talk about their culture, growing requirements, how much water, sun or shade. And I did that 3 years, I think, and made this binder and started absorbing all this knowledge of plant names, and I could just easily memorize. I'm like, yeah, those are impatiens. That's Calibrachoa. That's it came so naturally. And then into college as well, taking the plant ID courses was more like fun for me.
You really found your niche there for sure.
Yeah.
So talk more about your collegiate experience. How did you get plugged into the Engler program, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I actually didn't join Engler much until my final semester. I dabbled a little bit early on, and actually before I came to college, I visited UNL. It was the only college visit I did. I kind of knew I wanted to come here, and I remember one of my dad's friends, telling him that they were starting this Engler program, I think the year before I was coming. So it was brand new, but as I was coming into college, and didn't really know too much about it. Took one class my sophomore year with it, and I had almost instant imposter syndrome. I was, surrounded by all these wonderful, bright, intelligent people that are super driven and super passionate. I'm like, that is not me. Like, I was like, maybe I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. Like, I was pretty intimidated at first. So I was very busy with other things in college too. I was in the Cornhusker marching band and super involved with horticulture club, and also worked throughout college in the summers and did a little bit being a teacher's assistant in different classes. So I kept busy, but then towards the end, I just decided I wanted to get the minor and really dive into it, because kind of felt like, I could work for someone my whole life and just be an employee. That'd be fine. But I also just had something in me that I'm like, no, I think I also would want to own my own thing on the side at least. And kind of felt drawn back to farming in a way. Not necessarily with corn and soybeans, the traditional agronomic crops. Wanted to do more of the niche markets with, found my passion in viticulture. But the more I came around Engler and the Engler program, I could see just how, everyone had that passion, and it was kind of contagious, and I started to be more drawn to it and realized, like, I want to be like, these people that I'm meeting. How do I tap into this passion that I have and build something? And also I needed the practical knowledge of how to start a business. And that was the kind of the biggest intimidating part for me, was financially, how do you run a business? What do you need to know in that respect? And that was the part that, I probably struggled with the most. But Dave Lamb helped me a lot with that in the classes that I took with him. And that was very helpful.
Awesome.
Later on in life.
So what is it about grapes, or what is it about a vineyard that makes you excited and want to continue to learn more and hone in on that skill set?
Yeah, I kind of fell into the viticulture scene. It's a bit of serendipity, and a lot of things that happened in my life have kind of been serendipity. I got email through the horticulture program that someone was looking for an assistant manager for this vineyard, Oak Creek Vineyard, and I applied and got the job and worked there every summer and a little bit throughout the school year. And then after graduation, they wanted me to stay on, and so I did, and I became manager. And my boss, Eric, wanted to retire, or go into retirement, so I started leasing the vineyard from him. And then just this year, I bought the vineyard from him.
That's so exciting.
And yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you. And after I graduated college in 2016, winter of 2016, I also, in 2017, I planted my first acre of my own grapes on my parents' ground, just renting ground from them, and we've planted more throughout the years. But what got me into it was, I mean, you know, it kind of just presented itself, and I knew I wanted to do something with horticulture. In my mind, I didn't exactly know. I was like, maybe I'll go grow vegetables or plant an orchard, or, you know, I wasn't sure. I knew I wanted to work with plants. And falling into this, I really fell in love with viticulture. When you first think of a vineyard, it's a very romantic kind of feeling. You know, you think of beautiful sunsets, sun-caressed hills in Italy, and seeing, you know, vineyards and ripened grapes, just beautiful, and gives you warm, fuzzy feelings. And that draws people in initially, but then you realize how much work it is and how labor-intensive it can be, and how, I mean, it's farming. It's just like farming. You know, weather will throw you for a curve, or variety of different things. Insects can be a struggle. It's just like farming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and maybe it's because it is just a different kind of farming. It really drew me in. But something about working with a perennial crop like a grapevine, or trees like at the tree nursery, after you spend a whole year with a perennial crop, tending it and watching it grow, you really start to kind of get in sync and kind of know you know, kind of its life cycle throughout the year. And it's very interesting that when you spend a lot of time outside and work outside, the length of days and the temperature kind of affects you as well. So I kind of feel like a plant sometimes. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, the temperature's warming up, and I don't know, you just kind of start to have this intuition of what's going on, and you feel connected with them in a way. And it might sound odd,
I think that's awesome. I definitely do not experience that sync. I feel like more often than not, I have a gray thumb as opposed to a green thumb. So I definitely admire that.
Yeah.
So you were managing the vineyard and you had that experience, but then after purchasing it, was there a mindset shift, or what was that experience like after you kind of adapted this owner's mentality, really?
Yeah. Well, it actually came when I started to lease the vineyard a couple of years ago. I didn't own it yet. I was just leasing. But maybe it's because I had, I went ahead and purchased all of the tractors and equipment and a lot of the big equipment that I needed to run the operation. So at that point I was like, all right, it's go time. Having that much at stake, and wanting it to be successful. And also this time that I had spent with, you know, in this vineyard before, you start to feel that sense of ownership and have that kind of connection with it, that you want to see it thrive. You want to see it grow. It's, you know, you spent this much time around another living organism, you kind of feel a little, you know, connected to it. Yeah. And it came even more so, you know, once I actually decided to buy it. And for a while, I was kind of on the fence, like, is this the route I want to go? Do I want to stick with this location, or do I want to, you know, maybe go this other way and invest more in a vineyard, more in Prague? And there was various factors at play with that, not really knowing exactly location-wise where I wanted to be, being, you know, either closer to home or being spread out. It's really not that far. They're only 30 miles apart or so, but finally taking the plunge and doing it just kind of is like it was a relief, just kind of feeling settled. And it's like, okay, this is it. Now I know, you know, where I'm planted. And it does feel good to have that official ownership in it, and to be able to call it yours, and make the big decisions now.
So give us the status update of 100 Hills Hops and Vines. What are you offering? What are you growing? Just give us the update.
Yeah. So we grow wine grapes for the state of Nebraska. We have 2 wineries in particular that we grow for, kind of on contract, loosely on contract, but they're very good to work with. So a handshake is, as good as, yeah, we grow grapes for them. We grow Edelweiss. These are our white varieties: Edelweiss, Brianna, and Lacrosse. And red varieties are Frontenac and Petite Pearl. Yeah, so we grow them for the winery, and people always ask me, "Are you making wine yet? Where can I get your wine?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not making wine. I just, once I deliver them to the winery's crush pad, they're not my problem anymore." Yeah, yep. But yeah, I sell to James Arthur and Cellar 426, and I've sold whenever I have surplus of something, I sell a little bit to other places throughout the state too, if I have extra, or if one of the first 2 maybe don't need as much in a certain year, I'll sell a little bit elsewhere. We also offer custom harvesting services, so we have a machine that will mechanically harvest grapes.
Oh wow.
And what used to take us 6 hours to do with about 30 people to do an acre by hand, now it takes us about 2 hours with 2 to 4 people.
Oh wow.
And
I would love to see that machine in action.
It's a beast. It's a New Holland Broad is the model, make and model of it. Yeah, it's amazing. And we would not be able to harvest on time at the volume that we have. We would not be able to harvest efficiently and be able to do it without this machine. And many other vineyards and wineries in the state are kind of at the same place that we were at, where it's hard to find help, hard to find labor consistently and at certain times, because with grapes, when they're ripe, they got to go, it's time. And a lot of wineries rely on their clientele that people are working 8 to 5 jobs, so they usually have to pick on weekends. And a lot of wineries do have a good following of people that are able to come hand harvest, but not everyone is able to get that. So we will bring our machine to the winery or the vineyard and harvest for them, efficiently and on time, and we can do it any time of day. A lot of times we will start in the dark because it's best to harvest grapes when it's the coolest. So we, some of our fields, when we have a couple acres to do at night, we'll start at midnight or 2 a.m. and go till about 7 in the morning. Other wineries are okay with starting at 8 in the morning and going if it's not going to be too hot that day. So that's
interesting.
Yeah, so we offer that custom harvesting. The hops are actually not really a part of our operation and much anymore. My brother, that was kind of my brother-in-law's passion project, and he still has them. He has about 1/8 of an acre of hops, and we really wanted to get into it, and we did a lot of research and kind of trying to get into the industry with the craft brewers and other hop growers, and made a lot of good connections and made a lot of friends that way. But the state of the hop market in Nebraska right now is not super conducive to being able to produce, I guess, the quality of product that the breweries are looking for, and we don't have a good way to process the hops into pellets, which is what they want to be able to make a consistent product year round and in big batches. Nebraska just isn't really able to do that right now, and there's a few people working on it. But then, whereas with grapes, when we plant an acre, we know where it's going to go once it starts producing. Whereas with the hops, that's not really the case, where the brewery is going to commit to you early on. So it's a bit more risky, and it can be done, and there are people doing it, but we have realized that it's much more conducive of our time to spend it on grapes and pursue that. So
very understandable.
Yep. So someday, if we have a winery, which that's a big if, we would, maybe use our own hops and our own beer someday. But
absolutely. So is that a consideration going forward?
It is. Kind of a lot of things would need to happen. A lot of things would need to fall in place if it were to happen. And I have ideas and kind of a vision of what I would want it to be and where I would want it to be. And kind of the culture of what kind of company we would create. 'Cause first and foremost, we are farmers.
Yes.
Which the nice thing about wineries and making good wine is that good wine starts in the vineyard. So you have to grow a good product, to do that. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility, but I'm at the stage now, and my family too is at the stage where if it happens, that's great. But if not, I'm going to be perfectly happy just farming my whole life. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So I want to talk some about your full-time job at Great Plains Tree Nursery. Talk about that and what it's like to balance having a full-time job and also running the vineyard.
Yeah. So I am extremely blessed to be working at Great Plains. The owners, Brian and Heather Byers, Heather has been a little involved in Engler throughout the years. She won a quick pitch competition back when she was at UNL. She studied horticulture as well. I think she was here before Engler was around, but she's come back and helped out with some competitions and things like that. And it's funny, I actually interviewed with her for Great Plains at the same time when I interviewed for the vineyard back in 2014. And it just turns out that year she was like, actually, I don't need, they were a bit smaller company at the time. She was like, actually, it turns out we don't need the summer help this year, but, thanks. And so I went with the vineyard route. But then, years later after I graduated and once my boss, Eric, wanted to retire, I knew I wanted to continue on with the vineyard, but I had a little bit more of a philosophy of paying off debt very aggressively and, trying to be as financially responsible as I could. So I'm like, I'm going to hold a day job while I can, as long as I can, as long as it makes sense. And then eventually I'll step away and just do the vineyard full time. I wanted to take a very calculated risk of balancing my time and, I being stretched thin, but hoping that I can make it work, set myself up financially to be able to grow as opportunities presented themselves. And I really like Dave Ramsey's example of, if you want to start your own business, but also have your day job, it's like you're in a boat coming to a dock and you want to get yourself into a position where you don't have to jump or, jump in the water and swim. You want to be able to get close enough where you just step onto the dock where, you take a very calculated risk and know that you're doing it at a time when you're going to succeed, or at least have a very good chance of succeeding. And I'm sure I could now, or, if I had to jump out now and swim, I'm sure I'd be okay. But Brian and Heather have been so great working with me, letting me off whenever I need time off for grape harvest or need to do things in the vineyard. I've learned so much from them on how to run a company well and how to treat employees well. Their company culture is great. It's honestly the best place I've ever worked.
Oh, wow.
They're just wonderful people. And I have wonderful coworkers too. And I know they're just wonderful people, but I think we're all just happy from working with plants too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are experimenting with side hustles now, or trying to find alternative streams of income in addition to their day jobs. What would you tell someone who's on the verge of maybe taking that step or has interest in exploring something else?
I would say understand why you're doing it. Because I know several people that have different side hustles for various reasons, but they know why they're doing it. There's some people that have their regular career that is something that they're not necessarily passionate about. They might be good at it, but it's just, something that they know they're good at and they're going to do it. But they want to have something that they're very passionate about on the side, something that brings them joy or brings other people joy. Others maybe are doing it for the extra cash. Yeah, I guess I would say know why you're doing it. And if you're passionate about it, gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. So you are obviously working long days and spreading yourself thin, working towards your goal. But what about what you're striving toward makes the hard days worth it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess it kind of goes into my why of what I know I'm called to do. And though it's not always that my why isn't always in front of me or at the front of my mind, it influences everything I do and all the small things that I choose to do. And so my why, I'll just say my why.
Yes.
My why is kind of my purpose in life is to pursue truth and goodness and beauty, and to live with that kind of at the center of my life and to pursue those things. And what has always pointed me towards truth and goodness and beauty has been plants. And learning about them and working with them. And I have a lot of different passions in life and a lot of different interests that all point me towards those things. But plants have always kind of been the center of what gives me that joy. And in college, I know a few times in plant physiology or some of the different plant science courses I took, horticulture courses that I took, we would learn something about how photosynthesis works or how plants use water, how plants eat sunlight and air and water and use that to sustain life, and learning the very intricate processes and the chemistry of how they use carbon and build carbon to build tissue. There was a few times throughout college where I just kind of teared up from learning these processes and seeing how beautiful they were. And usually I tried to hide tearing up because I'm like, I don't want people to think that I'm so that something's wrong. But yeah, I was just moved several times, and I still am. Whenever I learn or discover something just mind-blowing about how plants function and operate, and how they kind of have this genius design of how they live, or just experiencing them, just seeing the beauty and nature of the colors of plants now in the fall, or smelling, the different ways you can sense plants, through sight and smell and taste, eating them too, or drinking wine. I'm just continually moved by that beauty and struck by the goodness of plants. And I don't see it every single day, you know, on those long days where I'm maybe stretched thin, trying to do a lot of things with the sunlight that I have, trying to accomplish a lot of things. That's not always in front of me, but I think having that why at my core and knowing that I'm pursuing those things is what keeps me going.
Absolutely. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So if you could talk to sophomore year Kara, who walked into the Engler class and had that intense imposter syndrome, what would you tell her looking back?
I would say a lot of things, but about many different things. But I would probably tell myself, just, you know, dive into Engler. There's so much treasure and so much wisdom in this program, and so many good people and things that are going to be a good influence on your life that I wish I would have told myself to, you know, really dive into it. And, you know, if I felt inadequate or if I felt like I either didn't belong or whatnot, I've learned that there's a study that says you are an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And looking back at all the friends that I made throughout college, I met some very incredible people and some wonderful people, and everyone has kind of moved away, or, you know, just because of distance, you don't see people as much anymore. But yeah, while you're here at UNL, it's a incredible opportunity to find a good community like Engler and surround yourself with those people and let them influence you, learn from them, and let them teach you things about yourself and about what you're passionate about and what you want to be and what you want to pursue.
Definitely. I think that's awesome, especially you as an alum, because you're so plugged in to the program still and connected with all the folks you met in college. It's fun as a recent graduate to see that those ties are still holding true for you. So that's awesome. Yeah.
I think I'm probably more involved in Engler as an alum than I was like when I was actually here, which is great. That's incredible. It's been great.
Awesome. Is there anything that we missed that you'd like people to know?
I listened to your most recent podcast, I think when Emily interviewed you, and you said that there's an inward and an outward facing why. I was like, I really like that. But the thing is, I don't exactly know how my outward facing why works. And it's worked in different ways over the years of how I share this joy for plants with other people. I did a little bit through being a TA in college, you know, I've led wine tasting parties or have served on the education committee for the Grape Growers Association, you know, helping people learn more. And I'm not entirely sure, you know, what that's going to look like in the future, if that includes a winery or what have you. But I know that somehow your why has to also be facing outward and how you share it with other people. And this joy that I get from plants of seeing their goodness and their beauty, I know that sharing that with other people, hopefully it brings them joy, but also increases the fruits in my life of that joy. So that I remembered from your interview talking about the outward facing why. I was like, that's an important part too, because I could just close in on my why and what it means to me, and just live in a bubble. But what's really gonna fulfill you and bring you even more joy, multiply it, is to share it with others.
Absolutely. And I think back to the wine, it's cool because I see the wine as a materialized way for you to share your love of plants with other people who maybe aren't, maybe do have gray thumbs like I do, but a glass of wine is a very tangible symbol of the hard work that you put in to growing the grapes.
I love that. Yes. It is a labor of love. Wine is so complex, and it blows my mind. And maybe that's why I'm drawn to it, because it has that complexity to it. Let's see if I can summarize all that goes into it really quickly.
Yeah.
The grapes that are grown, wine grapes specifically, are different from other perennial fruit crops. A raspberry tastes like a raspberry. Blueberries tend to taste like blueberries. Apples are a little different. You can have a little more complex flavors in apples. But in wine grapes, the chemistry is just so cool.
I love how excited your face lights up.
Oh my gosh, it gets me excited and giddy. Wine grapes have the chemistry, the organic chemistry of a lot of different fruits, not just fruits, but a lot of different things like Cabernet Franc, which we don't grow here in Nebraska. It's a vinifera variety that's grown more so in California and on the coasts and in Europe. But it is known to pick up the flavor characteristics from the soil. So you'll get some of the like gravel or limestone flavor in it.
Interesting.
A lot of red grapes will have flavors of other red fruits like strawberry or cherry or blackberry. White grapes can have a lot, same thing. They can have flavors of peach, orange blossom, grass, green pepper, and there's chemical names for these things like pyrazines, if I remember right. Pyrazines are what gives it the vegetative green pepper and grass taste. I'm blanking. Yeah, there's different chemical compounds that are present in these different grape species and grape varieties that's going to show up in the wine. And so those are primary flavors of the chemical makeup that's present in the grapes. But then once it comes into the winery, once you add yeast, the yeast adds these secondary flavors that can bring kind of the more jammy flavor in grapes, like cooked fruits, or depending on the type of yeast you use, it can give kind of more of a buttery flavor to it. And then aging it also brings more flavors, like the flavor from the oak, or and it can go south sometimes,
yes.
If you have something infect the wine, certain bacteria or whatnot, it can cause some undesirable flavors like, the smell of a barn or sweaty socks. And that's not good. They try to avoid that, through sanitation practices. And so, yeah. And the way that the grapes grow, how much sunlight you let the red grapes get can develop more complex flavors, or if you keep them more shaded, they're going to have more of that vegetative flavor. So yeah, there's a lot of work.
I had no idea about any of that. That's incredible.
It's exciting.
Well, if I have one wish for all of our listeners, it's that you all find something that makes you as excited as Kara is about plants and grapes. It's been so fun to watch and to visit with you about this, because it's so clear that this is what you're called to do. So thank you for stopping by and sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Engler Journey podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review so we can keep building people, building businesses, and building this community.